Now joining the Ron Johnson Show, we have Ben Utecht, one of my former teammates. I remember recruiting Ben. Short story, Ben was a receiver. I forget the high school, possibly Hastings maybe, but Ben was
Hastings, that's it.
Yep, Ben was a receiver, came in. Joker Phillips said, man, we got to get this tall, lanky, 6'6" kid to play receiver. Ben shows up. They're like, man, eat some steak and potatoes. You're going to tight end. Best decision of Ben Utecht's life. He ends up being one of the best tight ends I've seen in the Big Ten, goes on to play for the Indianapolis Colts. I heard tons of stories when I got to the Colts as a coach about Ben Utecht and his guitar and singing at training camp and Peyton Manning. Like, man, if you don't put this guitar away and pick up the playbook. But I want to welcome Ben Utecht in. Ben, as we're jumping into this right away, man, championship mentality, Gopher football as well. First off, man, why Minnesota? You're a hometown kid. Why did you pick to stay in the state of Minnesota to play?
Gosh, Ron, maybe for some of the same reasons you did. I mean, Coach Glenn Mason had just taken over, and he had been a part of rebuilding a couple of programs already, and the recruiting class that I came out with, if you remember, consisted of Thomas DePay and Phil Archer and a number of really highly recruited, homegrown Minnesota players. And we all collectively kind of talked about how we wanted to be a part of transforming this Minnesota into the state of football. And so that's really a big reason why we stayed is because we believed in Coach Mason and all the talent that he had brought onto the program, like yourself. And look what we did together, Ron. I mean, we had a great run, and I think went to 4 bowl games, and it holds a lot of dear memories for me.
Yeah, when you're looking at Glenn Mason, so now let's transfer into PJ Fleck, and now you're starting to see that Trey Bixby decides to stay home, number 2 player in the state of Minnesota. You're seeing a lot of Minnesota talent. I just heard a story about J.D. Spillman possibly wanting to be a Gopher, but when Nebraska said they would transfer, they told him he could not transfer into the Big Ten, so that's why he picked TCU. They would not release him into the transfer portal because this is before the true portal. It was just, hey, you got to release him in, and they told him you can't go to the Big Ten. So he had to pick TCU, and then concussions, of course, ended his career at TCU. But when you look at PJ Fleck and what he's trying to build, what is your thoughts around PJ Fleck and what this program is going to be?
I mean, I'm a massive fan, Ron. My career after retiring and spending time with Tony Dungy, arguably one of the greatest servant leaders on the planet, who won a world championship with this mentality that if you build better men, you get better football players. And I bought in hard, and it's really become a part of my passion today as a chief culture officer. And so when I listen to the words of PJ, it's like music to my ears, right? It's like because it's the combination of it's a combination of being brilliant with the X's and O's, the strategy of the game of football, but understanding that you're dealing with young men, you're dealing with people, and if you can create greater value and greater purpose in their lives, they're going to give you everything that they have, right? And that's that championship culture mentality. Yeah. And that's infectious, man. You want to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, and so when you think about championship culture, you brought it up, Tony Dungy. He's one of the reasons I came to Minnesota. He's a Gopher. I'm from Detroit. He was from Michigan. Him and my dad were teammates with the Steelers, won 2 Super Bowls. Tony called my dad actually and said, hey, you should check out Glenn Mason. Glenn Mason's been trying to get in touch with young Ron, and so I met Glenn, and I agree with what you said. Like, I liked what Glenn was saying. He really explained to me that, and for me staying home, Lloyd Carr to this day still calls me a pussy. Like he does. That's what he says. He said, you're a big wuss. You were scared. You were scared to play for Michigan. You didn't want to be great. Eric Campbell, their coach, he texts me the same thing. But all in love. My dad played for Lloyd Carr in Eastern Michigan. So Lloyd just assumed, hey, you're gonna follow and come play for me. Your dad played for me, you're gonna play for me. And I just had a different feel when I got to Minnesota, meeting some of the guys at the time. who were transferring in, Karan Riley. On my trip, we had Jake Cuppy, Arlen Bruce. We had who else was on that trip? Mike Lehan, Tellus Redmond, Jack Brewer. So we all had the same recruiting trip. And so we all were like, man, this might be the spot. And Mason did it. PJ now calls it like, I don't even know what he calls it. It's like the big recruit weekend where they have the most recruits. I think Mason did that first. We just didn't have a name for it. Like our recruiting trip was loaded with guys, and we all fell in love with the team, the guys, the young guys coming in. It wasn't even so much the old guys. It was the new young guys we met, because I don't remember meeting anybody besides like Jimmy Henry and Elvin Jones. And so nothing against those two, but that didn't really impress me. It was the other guys coming in. And so, Ben, we're talking about championships, though, and we talked about Tony Dungy. The Timberwolves are currently into the playoffs now, 7th seed. They got to play the 2 seed Grizzlies. From a championship mindset, what do you think the Colts did that other teams, no matter the sport, can emulate?
Well, part of it was that they made culture objective, so it was something that they actually put time into figuring out how to practice, right? And so it's like you want to help players go deeper into their interpersonal relationships with each other, right? You talk about the culture that we're in now and the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusivity, right? How do you do that? How do you bring 53 guys from the most diverse areas of the country, and you bring them together to create what Tony called family, right? And you know what PJ says about family: forget about me, I love you, right? So you're trying to bring these men together to create a unit that is so strong, there's nothing that can dismantle it. These are guys now that will step onto whatever the field of play is, and give more of themselves, arguably, because of that family situation. The talent's there, right, Ron? You don't make it to the NFL if the talent's there. I played for 2 teams, Indy and Cincy. Okay, I went from Peyton Manning to Carson Palmer. It wasn't that Cincinnati didn't have talent, but they had a toxic culture at the time, and it wasn't a strong, united family locker room. So those 2 things, to me, at least from my own experience, are what made Indianapolis unique and different. Is you had a coach that had an incredible game plan for creating culture, for creating brotherhood, for using what I think some people view as soft skills, even though they're the hardest skills that I've experienced, combining that with the talent on the field. And now you've got a group of 53 that care so deeply. They're playing for their coach because they love their coach, because they care. They're not playing out of fear so that they keep their job. They're playing because they respect deeply the coaching staff and the people on the field. And I genuinely believe that is a difference maker.
Yeah, and so when you look at Karl-Anthony Towns, him hugging his girlfriend or wife after the game, that became a meme right away because of the guy standing behind them, kind of staring, looking like, what are they doing on the court? You look at Patrick Beverley running around the court, mom's there, family's there, brothers there, cousins there, everybody's hugging them. Even though they just wanted to play the play-in seed, you can see that kind of family-friendly atmosphere where they're all hugging each other, they're all running around, and people question that. From what it sounds like, you're saying Tony Dungy embraced that family mentality, that everybody's welcome. We want your family to feel like they're part of our team and our family. Do you think that's why these Timberwolves players have turned it around and are playing for Chris Finch, because they're not afraid to have their wife, show up, after a game and hug them and kiss them and show affection?
Yes.
And I think people underestimate, relationship. When a man hugs his wife after a game, it shouldn't be a joke. It's just, we experienced something. I want to share it with you. It's not just about me. It's about my family. So what is your thoughts on that for the last one before we get out of here?
Yeah, no problem. So it reminds me of a powerful story that Brandon Stokely told about Peyton Manning's first week in Denver, right? So Tony Dungy in Indianapolis institutes what's called Family Saturdays. And when we did our last walkthrough, all families and kids could come and be a part of it. And there's a story that Tony shares about Peyton coming into his office, complaining every week, because how is he supposed to throw a pass to Marvin Harrison when Marvin's kid's hanging all over him, out on the field? And Tony was like, listen, deal with it, because this is the culture that we're creating here. We're celebrating the power of these types of relationships, right? So fast forward to Denver. Dungy's now retired. He's doing opening or Sunday night kickoff, right? And Stokely comes over to the sideline and says, Coach, you're not going to believe what happened this last week. So Peyton stands up in a team meeting. And he says, guys, I'm instituting family Saturdays today, and here's why. And Tony said, goes on to share that after that Denver Bronco win, Sunday night kickoff, they're in the press conference room, and there's Peyton with both of his kids hanging off of his legs while he's up on the podium doing the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what followed that season was a Super Bowl championship. So,
Yep.
These things matter. It doesn't mean that you can't win without them, but it does mean that you can win the right way with them. Right. And it's just true. Our Super Bowl ring, you've seen this on the side. It's the only ring in the history of football to have a belief system engraved in the side of the ring. It's the word faith.
Yeah.
And what it meant was it meant freedom for all individuals to trust and hope in each other. Right. If you can create that type of environment, you're going to get the best performance out of your team.
Right.